Hey, welcome to this lesson video about factoring quadratics. We're looking at the form x squared plus bx plus c. So the big thing to remember here is that there's understood to be a 1 in front of your x squared, okay? Because this is going to be a different video about when there's a number other than 1 there. But we're just looking at when there's a 1 in front of your x squared, so your x squared is by itself. Our learning target is to be able to factor quadratics of this form. But before we get started actually factoring, let's try some puzzles, okay? So I've got this x puzzle, and it says find the pair of factors that multiply to the top number and add to the bottom. So what numbers would multiply to 15 and add to 8? So off to the side, maybe you want to think about the pairs that multiply to 15. 1 and 15, 3 and 5. Is there any way I can get an 8 out of any pair of these numbers? Well, yeah, 3 and 5, if I add them, I would get an 8, okay? So that would finish my puzzle. All right, what about if I've got negative 21 on top, so I want them to multiply to negative 21, but add to a negative 4. So maybe before we even start thinking about numbers, let's talk about signs. If two numbers multiply to a negative number, what does that mean? That means one of them had to be negative and one of them had to be positive. Okay? So now let's look at 21 and think of its factors. 1 and 21, 3 and 7, and I think that does it for us. So out of these two pairs, is there any way I could get a 4? Well, I'm looking at this pair. Is there any way I could, one of those numbers being negative, make them add to a negative 4? Well, a good rule of thumb is whatever you want it to add to, out of your pair, make the bigger number the negative. So whatever the sign of this number is, the bigger number should also be that sign. So since this is a negative 4, between the 3 and 7, the 7's bigger. So I'm going to make 7 negative. So then that way when I add, I for sure get negative 4. Okay, let's try another one. Whoa, multiply to negative 30 and add to a 1. So again, multiplies to a negative number, so that means I need one of each. I need a negative and a positive. So if I think about 30, it's got a few pairs. Oops, and I skipped over 2 and 15, didn't I? 4, 5, and 6. So out of these pairs, do you see any way to get a 1? Well, I'm looking at this 5 and 6, and I know if I take 6 and I subtract 5, I would get a 1. So that trick I was telling you on the last slide, 1 is positive, so the bigger number of the two, 6, should also be positive. So if I make the 5 negative when I add, it's like I'm taking away 5, so I would have a positive 1. All right, I think we've got one more puzzle, and then we'll move on to the actual factoring. I've got a positive 36, and then they're supposed to add to a negative. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Multiply to a positive, but add to a negative? Well, for anything to multiply to a positive number, it means you either had 2 positive numbers or you had 2 negative numbers. That's the only way to get multiplied to a positive. So I'm thinking if they add to a negative, maybe I should have 2 negative numbers. Well, let's figure it out. So if I think about the factors of 36, there are quite a few. I might not be able to write them all out, but let's see. 3 and 12, maybe if my computer keep up with me. 4 and 9, 6 and 6. Oh, okay, so maybe that's my pair. Is there any way I can get 13 out of these sets of numbers? Well, I'm looking at this 9 and 4. So if I get negative 4, negative 9, then I will get my negative 13. Okay, so those puzzles were kind of fun. They make you think a little bit, right? We're